Let me tell you something, and it's about to get better. $140,000 was added to my wealth last month. Woo! It's 3 packages of milk these days. That's great, but it's about to get more and more and more. But you will not profit from it anyway, and this is why. So let's go back in time real quick to see where things went wrong and what the turning point was. Let me take you back to, the music is gone. Let me take you back to April 7, 2025, which was here, aka 1 month or 60% ago.
Every day is the best day since the prior because it keeps going down.
I don't see where the liquidity is going to come from. My ETH liquidation is at $900. Do you think I will be okay? Burberbull!
Crypto Banter was right.
Hold up. You can take it too far.
It's over. Eric Crown was so right. Do not listen to this. I sold because a big crash is incoming.
You don't know if we're going to zero. This guy is clueless. Always telling you to buy and it goes down.
It's time to unsubscribe.
You were wrong about it. Let's do 3K. It will be a success. That pretty much went down 1 week, so. Wow, you can be serious. A massive dump loading in 3, 2, 1. Oh, fuck.
I despise this scammer space and I would never encourage anyone to buy this garbage. Once I can finally sell, I'm done with this crap.
Turns out, that's of course the time to buy. When people don't feel like it, when it feels uncomfortable, when they're longing and wonder if they will get liquidated. Well, since that date, Bitcoin ran from $75,000 to $104,000. Ethereum had even a bigger run up, going all the way from $1,400 to $2,600, and even the altcoin market, which has underperformed ETH for the last couple of days, went from $178 billion to $290 billion. And I've made $140,000 in this little run up right here. Now, in this video, I want to show you why I think this is nothing. The run isn't over. The call so far, if I could pat myself on the shoulder for once, since everybody hates me, was fucking perfect, right? But I don't think that this was it. And I want you not to make the same mistakes, because now people might feel like, well, yeah, well, okay, but now it's going down. Like, man, it could all go down. Of course, in the short term, it probably will see a good correction. But like I said, this is probably the third leg. Gay, right? But it's making us money, so who cares, right? We had in the altcoin market, we had one huge leg to the upside when we kind of came out of the bear market. We had our second leg in the whole end of 2024 period. And now the third leg is happening. And I want to show you why. And I also want to show you what the best position is in my experience and in my opinion. Because the market is showing there's money coming into crypto, right? We can't deny that. If you look at the total crypto market, it has been going up. It's not just a flow from Bitcoin into ETH and into alts. It's the total crypto market that went up from $2.3 trillion to 3.3. The crypto market itself gained $1 trillion in a month. In a month. And people are still believing that the bull market is over. $1 trillion in a month. All right? So let me get into the business. Welcome to the FOMO Factory. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will keep on mocking people. That's funny, okay? If I make mistakes, which I do, mock me. I don't care, man. We're humans. But this is the best way to learn from it. If somebody sometimes, as an adult, looks you in the eye and say, loser. Now let's get into the things that I think are at least very likely to happen. And again, there's not a guarantee that it's going to play out, because this is just my opinion and I get things wrong as well. But it's about the odds, right? Let's bet on the fastest horse and not the handicapped horse, right? So why do I think this run is far from over, and how in the hell did I make $140,000 out of crypto with this small little thing right here? And I'm telling you this not because I want to show you like, hey, I made money. I can do that with my wife, and then I know that she's probably not going to leave me and I feel great again. But I do that so that you can do the absolute same thing, okay? I wish I had somebody who did this for me in the last market, but I always looked at crypto banter, so that didn't really work out, okay? So why do I think that this move is far from over yet? In all logic, Bitcoin, technically wise, it just broke the fuck out, right? Bitcoin was approaching that $93,000 area, and it had a little trouble right there. And it broke, and I thought like, okay, 99 could be some resistance, but Bitcoin felt like, what what resistance, right? And it's now up right there. Bitcoin is showing strength. And why is that? We can take all the news out there, of course, and look like, hey, you know, the reason that Bitcoin is strong is because it's being bought OTC, and there's a supply shock incoming, and it's technical wise looking fantastic out there, and the ETFs are, and that could all be helping. At the end of the day, it is the post-halving year, and the post-halving year are so far always the full-on bull market years. And so if you look at the seasonality alone, then you wouldn't have to rely on news. You could just say like, hey, it's 2025, this year is going to be bullish, let's be bullish, right? And that would have worked out perfectly. Another reason is this, and it's like I said earlier, we have one chart saying it, we have another completely different thing saying the same thing, etc., etc., etc. So it's all confirming. You should not be blind to that, like ignore like basically everything and be like, yeah, well, no, like, oh yeah, okay, the trust me source always works so great, right? CoinGlass has bull market indicators, bull market peak indicators, and there are 30 different indicators. Now, none of these indicators are all perfect, okay? But if you put 30 indicators together and 0 of them say, hey, the top is in, then there is a very likely chance that the top is not in. Now, I do want to mention though, again, be a little careful with using just one of these indicators, because if you, for example, look at the pi cycle top indicator, I think it's kind of shitty and overused, because you could say like, well, time to top here, here, and here, but the indicator was made after this top, right? So of course it gets it right in hindsight, but the first real top that it had to predict was wrong. Right? People say this is the technical top. It wasn't. This was high. This was the top. Period. Stop whining. Right? So, but again, if you put all these different indicators together, it seems very likely to me that they're all going to be wrong. Also, maybe a way of not overthinking things and overcomplicating it. But the retail is here, right? Like it's low. There is basically no retail in the game right now. Markets don't top on negativity, but they also don't top when nobody is here, right? Because then there's nobody here to sell as well. And markets top on full excitement. And we got 2 like massive examples of that, right? And in fact, in 2017, you can see the social score is red and the Bitcoin price is blue, right? We had the Bitcoin peak right here in December 16, right? And the retail peak was pretty much a month later, right? So retail's also always kind of late, right? But nevertheless, you see that it's in a massive peak right here, and it's in a massive peak right here, and a massive peak right here. It's now the complete opposite. Now, I can show you 10,000 examples why I think that this market is not over, but most of all, why I think that this market, and especially altcoins, are going to run a lot harder, is the following. Momentum indicators, they work pretty well, and you should not completely trade this, but when something is overbought on the stochastic RSI, then it's better to not buy and wait until it's oversold, right? And again, it could be overbought and still be in an uptrend. So don't be like, hey, it's overbought, let's sell, because hey, if you did that over here, then you would have sold Bitcoin anywhere around $70,000, $80,000 and it ran to 108, right? But you can see though that Bitcoin is now on the weekly. I'm looking at the longer time frames, right? I don't care about short term that much. If you look at Bitcoin on the weekly, it is now sitting at the same level as where it was over here. And that was pretty much this candle, right? And if you want to take it a little further to have some headroom, right? You can even take it here, but it still shows that, hey, Bitcoin still had a long way up, right? And there's never a guarantee that we go full into the overbought territory, right? You have to realize that. We did the same over here. We went up and then it cooled off and it went down. But based on everything, if you take the average, then this is not the place to be bearish, really, right? And for the altcoin market, it is looking way, way better. Now, Ethereum Bitcoin is an important chart because that shows how Ethereum does against Bitcoin. We can take a look at Ethereum and be like, oh yeah, Ethereum is holding up. Fuck that. If you look at Bitcoin, it's not holding up, it's going up, right? So better look at Ethereum Bitcoin and be like, hey, is it worth it to buy ETH over Bitcoin? And this chart said, nah, not so far, right? ETH has been lagging against Bitcoin. And it was telling people like, oh, ETH is dead and it's not coming back and it's all over. Well, in fact, that often gets confused with, hey, this is a pretty decent opportunity actually, right? Because Ethereum was as low as where it was at the beginning of 2020 against Bitcoin. But hey, from the Ethereum dollar chart, that's kind of hard to get the ratio out of that, to put it in perspective, right? So if you look at this date and now look at the Ethereum dollar pair, beginning 2020 was here when ETH was like 150 bucks, right? But it shows like, hey, 150 or 2000 is the new 150 basically. Why? Because Bitcoin is up more, right? So yeah, ETH is lagging against Bitcoin. We know that. And that's nothing too weird if we look at the last cycle, actually, by the way. But also, it doesn't have to go that up that hard again, right, against Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is worth a lot more. Why do you think that Ethereum kind of 2x'd pretty much, while this by far did not do a 2x, right? Like this chart is now up 37%. It's because Bitcoin is worth a lot, right? And that's what I said earlier on the channel as well. Like, and that's in general about alt season. Like, hey, we don't have to get a full-on alt season to see, you know, big price pumps, because there is a lot more liquidity in Bitcoin. We do not have to take all that market share right now, right? Last cycle, we took a lot of liquidity from Bitcoin while Bitcoin was sitting between $30,000 and $70,000. Now it's already $104,000 up till whatever it's going to be, right? So we have to take a lot less from Bitcoin to get equal pumps in this market. And that's so cool about this. But I'm going to show you one chart. And I said in the Telegram, this is some kind of a bear disappear spray. You just use it and all the bears are guaranteed gone. An altcoin bear disappear spray, by the way. And that chart, if you look at that chart, I assume you are not bullish on the or not bearish on the altcoin market if you're watching this though. But if you are, I can guarantee if you look at that chart, you won't be anymore. I'm really confident about that. But first, if you look at this chart right here, others, Ethereum. This is pretty cool, right? So this is the altcoin market against Ethereum. And the altcoin market is now going down against Ethereum. And you might be like, oh, altcoin market down. Sounds bad. No, it's just that Ethereum is now outperforming altcoins. And that's a good thing, because altcoins outperforming Ethereum doesn't give confidence in the market. If you see something called Fartcoin that's outperforming Ethereum, it might make you wonder like, what the fuck is wrong with this whole space, right? But if you now finally see Ethereum catching up, it gives people the confidence and the trust in the general altcoin market again. And then when Ethereum is up enough and this chart goes up again where altcoins outperform that more expensive Ethereum, that's where you're going to see the sickest altcoin runs, in my opinion. Plus, the last time we were this high was in April 2021. Now, that doesn't only line up completely with the 4-year cycle. You also know that April 2021 was a great moment for the crypto market. Yeah, we went into that summer lull at a certain point. But however, if you look what happened after that, look, this is where the altcoin market was, right? And you might be like, oh yeah, it went down and then it went up and it made like a double top. it did not really make a double top, bro. It went from 420 billion to 500 billion. That's quite some difference. Plus, it depends a little bit on the altcoin, right? If you look at some altcoins, for example, AVAX, if you overlay that, was somewhat of a newer coin, right? This thing really had its run during that second leg, right? That second leg in the last cycle was the leg for the altcoin market, basically. Yeah, and this is going to be not that different in this cycle, in my opinion. Now, there are a lot more charts that I can show. If you, for example, look at the Bitcoin dominance, this is also the reason why I think this isn't over, right? Why do I think that? Well, we have seen the Bitcoin dominance going down from 65% to 10%. But let's be honest, it's sitting at the same level as where it was 1.5 months ago, right? So is it really down? Yeah, I think that this is like, yeah, okay, well, right? It's not really a like, if you compare it to alt season, it's not much, right? Also, if you look at the stochastic RSI on the longer term time frames, right? The weekly time frame, you see that it just started to point downwards. Just started to point downwards, right? That's freaking amazing. Because this is, again, a weekly time frame. This does not decide what happens tomorrow or the day after or whatever. But if this, again, plays out to the downside, then that move is going to be huge. Because we now have seen what happens to the altcoin market when the things just have its small tick. The altcoin market, again, I made 140 grand. The altcoin market on average pumped 60%, right? And that's just by the Bitcoin dominance saying like, I'm a little tired right now. Not even falling down. But everyone should be open to the idea that this could be coming down right now. And why do I say that? Well, again, I have a lot of charts suggesting that, but one of the things is, hey, we all know Benjamin Cowan probably, and we know how accurate he has been, right? And how great he makes his metrics. According to his metric, if you look at the risk levels coded by colors, right? High risk levels are basically the moment to say like, wow, okay, let's be bearish on this asset right away. Right? And if you did that, it's pretty much the top, right? If you take the low, yeah, that's perfect, right? This works really well. But if you overlay this on the Bitcoin dominance, then the following shows up. We are now at a really high risk level. And I've showed this a couple times before, but I hope that people realize how important this is actually, right? So this is kind of just confirming what we were already looking at, right? The risk levels are flashing. Then why is Cowan not being bearish on the Bitcoin dominance? I have no fucking clue. But this is sitting at a higher level as where it was before we went into the alt season in 2021 and 2017, right? So the Bitcoin dominance is riskier and saying, get out more than it did before the only 2 big alt seasons we ever had. And now we're going to say like, yeah, it's not going to happen. At least consider it, I would say, right? So, this move isn't over yet. And again, there's one chart that I haven't shown a lot, which I think deserves a little more attention. So, we have the total crypto market, right? This is all the money in crypto within the top 125, right? That's $3.28 trillion. If you look at CoinMarketCap, that tracks even the rest outside of there, but doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Believe it or not, but these coins barely add up, right? So $3.2 trillion. That's a lot of money, right? Now, even though we could see the money printers getting turned on and things could only get a lot better from what we're going to discuss right now, if we just look at the money that there is right now, there are 2 assumptions that I can make. One, we are above the 2021 high for the total crypto market, and this was a sick fucking ass alt season. So this already shows like, hey, we don't need more money to get into an alt season. And I know the counter argument is like, yeah, but there are a lot of more coins right now. Yes, but most of these coins are dead, right? You don't have to look at the 50 million coins that there are right now, because 40 million out of them are on Solana, and they were made on Pump Fund, and they already got rocked before they came into the market, but they do add up to the total. But people don't know these coins, and even if they do, they are literally already rocked, so the liquidity cannot go there because these coins don't have liquidity to buy them, right? So that's not really the problem. Apart from that, are there a little more coins? Of course, right? But then again, in 2021, there were a lot more coins than in 2017, and we still got an alt season. So I think that that argument is a little like unneeded, actually. So again, we have more money than what we had when we had a fat fucking alt season. Sorry, this video is demonetization all over the place. Sometimes I feel like, do I keep it nice? Don't I keep it nice? But I'm maybe a little bipolar. It's always a surprise. So that's one. The second is, where's all the money, right? A lot of people, they may be looking, you might be looking at your crypto portfolio and be like, well, Bitcoin's almost at its all-time high right now. The crypto market is, but my portfolio isn't. What the fuck's wrong with me? It's because the money overall isn't there right now, right? If we look where all this money is sitting right now, 63% is sitting in Bitcoin. 63% of that total, right? The dominance measures the percent of the total crypto market. 63%. Then we have 6.5% basically in USDT and USDC. Now there are BUSD, DAI, whatever. So there are even more stables, right? Then we have almost 10% sitting in ETH. Then there are some high caps that are just sitting there like, hey, I don't do anything for 7 years, but I'm sucking up all the market share while going sideways, like XRP, for example, and then it pumps and dumps again. Fine, right? But that's not really my go-to investment. And then just 8.38% is sitting in the actual altcoins outside of the top 10. So basically everything that we invest in, right? If you look at the Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, USDT, and DAI dominance, that's pretty much 80% of the whole market, right? And again, then we have Solana, Cardano, that adds up for the other 12%, and then we have the lower caps, right? But if you look at this chart, again, Bitcoin, ETH, USDT, USDC, and DAI. What else is there? What's missing? Alts, right? Cool. So we know that this chart is showing the dominance of everything except for alts. I don't know about you, but I cannot look at this chart and be bullish on it. A long time ago, explained like, hey, how does a 4-year cycle, market cycle, look like? And it's like this. Overall, there's an accumulation phase. You can find it on the Wall Street cheat sheet as well, right? There's an accumulation phase where it goes sideways. It's where you accumulate. Then you have the uptrend. It's where you make your money. Distribution phase where you take your profits. And then we have a downtrend where you just play ping pong, whatever. And then it starts over again. Well, this chart looks exactly like that, right? It doesn't take it all the way back. But hey, this was an accumulation phase, uptrend, distribution phase, downtrend. Accumulation phase, uptrend, distribution phase, what comes after, right? This chart is showing me that this, not today, not tomorrow, not next week, eventually wants to go down, right? Really wants to go down. Sexy, right? And if that happens, that basically means that money flows from Bitcoin, ETH, and stables or stables, right? Go into the altcoin market. And that's what an alt season is, right? Where altcoins outperform Bitcoin. They can also outperform Bitcoin while Bitcoin is going down. Let's be real, right? Could be that Bitcoin goes to 50K. Definitely, right? That it tanks 50%. Hey, but that the altcoin market just tanks with 30%. A lot of people will be disappointed, but that's called an alt season. It's really what it is, right? But again, given the seasonality, all the things that I've said at the beginning of the video, I don't think Bitcoin is likely to do that yet. So this chart wants to go down. Purely based on the cycle pattern, how a cycle moves. Also just based on the fact that we have support right here, we have resistance right here. What a clear range do you want, right? This is the range. Cool. And what backs it up is that we look at all these charts on the big time frames, right? So the big moves. And we look at the stochastic RSI. And what does the stochastic RSI on this one says? It's really overbought right now, style, and it is just pointing to the downside. Party is about to get started, right? Last time, just for your mental health, right? Last time it went to the downside. What happened? We got that November-December run. Was that an alt season? You know, technically a small one, right? The Bitcoin dominance went down, but hey, in that case, you can have a lot of alt seasons, right? My definition of an alt season is just this big move and this big move, right? That was the last time that happened. It was not even halfway alt season, right? And what happened to altcoins on the dollar pair? The higher caps, right? This doesn't include everything outside of the top 125. Went from 150 billion to a new cycle high of 3x above it. And a lot of alts did 5-10x's there. And this was not even to be called an alt season, right? So that looks to me like it is getting pretty obvious. Now, what could kind of confirm this for me, right? This is what we're looking at. What could, you know, confirm what we are looking at right now? Well, that would basically mean that the dominance for altcoins has to go up, right? So cool. Then we have to take a look at others' dominance, right? Again, everything outside of the top 10. Low cap altcoins. How's that dominance sitting? Is the chart bullish? Is it bearish? Is there more downside room? Is there more room for the upside? You tell me. We are in that same sort of pattern, actually. However, this is going from the downside, and it happens to be bouncing off of it. Happens to be on a double bottom, by the way. And it happens to be that the weekly stochastic RSI is pointing to the upside. And it happens to be that we barely got a fucking move so far. Right? Again, this is what was this? Right? Nothing much yet, but that's what I said. Altcoins have to outperform Bitcoin with just 10%, while Bitcoin is sitting at $104,000. And we already have seen a lot of altcoins, not this one, this was for another example, but it was a pre-sale coin that always fucked up. But we already have seen altcoins, and I'm not picking some exceptions, but if you just look at a nice boring AVAX, right? Just a boring, really one of the most high cap coins out there. We have seen an AVAX go up with 70%. Well, this dominance just 10%. Again, let alone when we just get a, you know, not even, this was an alt season where we even broke this resistance. What do you think if we're going back to this place right now? You know, that's from this point, a 50% move. That's 5 times as much as what we have already seen from this point. 5 times as much. Right, so again, if this move was 60%, then realistically, again, worst case scenario, right? And worst case scenario, I mean, just going to this resistance, not even having a big breakout for alts or anything, but just ranging, this thing can go up 300% from where we are right now. And 300%, it's over $1 trillion market cap for the altcoin market. I don't know how much money you have gained from this point to this point, but it's slightly cautious to expect that you can at least make 5 times as much. And again, I don't want to be like, oh, you will make a 50x. You will probably not, right? And you will have problems selling the right price, etc., etc. But this is what the market realistically is going to offer us if it continues like this. So I am really bullish on it. Also, if you look at the Bitcoin and ETH dominance, right? Just the Bitcoin and ETH dominance. So this doesn't even include the stable coins, because like we saw, that was higher. But the Bitcoin and ETH dominance, man, this looks like a pretty good pattern to me, right? Again, we have a fuckload of support, resistance, support, resistance, right? Could it break? Could it be that we are here and that we are going to go above it? I don't want to rule it out. It could be possible. This may be more because Ethereum is going to catch up a little bit more, right? And that the money goes from USDT into ETH. Then this chart also goes up. Then again, I feel like, man, I don't know. It also looks like really accumulation to me, right? We had like trouble breaking this bottom right here. We didn't go this low, right? So why should we now go this high? We had some real trouble breaking this bottom. Will we have trouble breaking the top as well? I mean, we've been trying since June 2023, basically. So I am under the impression that the market, how it's running right now, is just the very, very, very beginning. Also, if you look at the dollar, right? The dollar was basically, if you look at this and you overlay the altcoin market on this, you can see that the dollar was tanking and the altcoin market was tanking with it. And with this little rebound the dollar has, again, altcoins already did what they did so far, right? And if you look at the dollar, bruh, this is like also just coming from the lows right here, just like over here when it ran all the way up here, just like it did over here when it ran like this, like. So in the short term, I feel like, yeah, I don't know, anything could happen, and I honestly expected a pullback a little earlier already. But then again, it makes sense if you look like we saw with the amount of people in retail right now. Who is going to take those profits? There's barely anybody here, right? This is, I think, mostly because of the supply shock, because Bitcoin and Ethereum have been being bought OTC like crazy. But then again, we can have a short-term pullback. Nevertheless, if you look at the big picture, also the Ethereum dominance, I feel like, how obvious was this, right? Not the amount that it bounced, like that was kind of crazy, but how obvious was it that this was the low, right? Again, we had a macro low over here as well, end of 2019. And that was the start of a huge Ethereum run, and altcoins eventually followed. So how did I make that 140K? Very simple, by just like what I said back then. Watch the videos from back then, beginning of April, right? I was buying the dips and it feels uncomfortable, right? I had some comments with people that said like, hey, I am also buying and I think you did great so far then. But it was very, very, very easy to make profits. If you look at the Tau, whatever, right? Also a high cap. This thing, I didn't buy the bottom on this, by the way. But this has been up 170%. Like, yeah, it's not so hard if you just go a little around the bottom to be in good profits right now. But the people, the comments that I've showed at the beginning of the video, sorry, but I think it's just really fucking funny, right? Why? Because it was all really obvious. It was really obvious, right? And I was being fucking laughed at. And the people who were like, it's over. What they missed out on a real good opportunity, right? There's not a guarantee that it will come again. Plus, these people have kind of seen now that, like, if it gets that scary, they don't buy, right? And now they probably feel FOMO or whatever and be like, fuck, should I buy now or should I wait for a dip? And eventually emotion is going to take over again, right? So the key is like, hey, in the case of a big liquidation event or a black swan or whatever that you can call the tariffs, take advantage of it. If you are in crypto, I guess you are here for a reason, right? Unless you came to short the market, fine. But overall, people come into crypto to invest, right? And yeah, like I said, like where do you think you can better buy? Here or here, right? In hindsight, people say here. But when we are there, it's like, nah, it's different. Turns out not to be once again. And that's exactly the mistake that I've been preaching about in every video for fucking 40 minutes. Because it should not have to be that hard, right? If you are in our private Discord, you can follow my portfolio. Also, have a one-on-one call with me if you want every now and then. But you can see what I have in my portfolio. I updated it so that you can also see when I buy or sell what exactly, what my amount is, the coins that I have. And that's not so you can buy the same thing, but you so you can see like, hey, this is how he invests, right? Like this is when he buys. This is when he sells. And again, it won't be perfect. For hell no, it won't be perfect, right? But let me tell you, spoiler, nobody can do it perfect. And you won't as well, don't expect that. But don't be that major fuck up as well, okay? That's it, man. I hope you liked the video. I hope it was a little funny as well, maybe. I don't know. But hey, subscribe anyway. Turn the bell notification on, and I'll see you in the next one.